Hey buddy, what's going on? Welcome back to the Agostinho Zinga Show with me, your host, Agostinho, and this is episode number 105. I'm back in the ends, back in the studio, or aka the living room, back on the airwaves, aka the SoundCloud airwaves, back on your screen, aka YouTube. What's happening, everybody? What's going on? How are you guys doing? Good? Great. Happy to hear it. I'm doing amazing. Little midweek day off, to do other things I want to do. And today, there's no other better day than to record a lovely podcast, put up on iTunes and all those malarkeys, and head up on YouTube and speak to you all anonymous people. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing nice. I'm doing amazing. I had a nice little workout this morning, as I usually do. I don't usually do. But, I've changed my kind of workout regime for this week because I'm post-tonsillitis, so I just want to kind of ease myself back into it. So I'm doing 3 days a week this week. So I did a workout yesterday. I did a workout on Monday. I did a workout today on Wednesday. And I'm going to have a break tomorrow. And I'm going to do another workout again on Friday, just to kind of like keep the balance a little bit, right? So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fresh. I did like nearly 4 miles, like about 3 mile 80 today, running around the ends of Stratford, which is a pretty fun experience. I feel fast. I feel fit. I feel like my endurance is where it should be. Maybe I'm kind of lost a little bit of quote unquote muscle mass because I haven't been going to the gym as regularly as I was before. But I'm happy not to be in that absolute sweat box like I mentioned before. There's hardly any air conditioning in that gym that I'm in. I'm assuming because it's a local council one. They're not gonna splurge out on a fucking nice air conditioning unit or anything, are they? They're not gonna do that because they're charging you fucking 20 quid, right, for a gym. Off peak, don't get me wrong, it's not on peak, but it's off peak including swimming. 20 quid a month is ridiculous. So you can't expect them to have like a state-of-the-art air conditioning unit in there. That's a bit too extra. So for that reason, I'm going to stay off of it, stay out of the gym. If anything, the weather is kind of cooling down at the moment. It's not super hot, so I could potentially go back in there, but I'm going to wait until it gets really, really cold outside and I can't, and it's not advantageous to be running every single day outside. And then I'm going to start then going to the gym a little bit more and probably do the same thing I'm doing now. Probably do 3 times a week or 4 times a week running. So do running Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, and then do a long run on Sunday. But then on Tuesday and Wednesday, do like the kind of like weight training, and then on Saturday, kind of just have like a rest day, and then kind of pick up again a long run on Sunday. I think that's what I might do. But for now, it's running outside, it's getting some fresh air, it's seeing the sights of Stratford, looking at all the new buildings. Oh wow, there's an office building. Oh wow, another office building. Oh wow, an office. No, actually a flat. It looks like an office building. The buildings around Stratford look all the same, innit? Really, for the most part, innit? Right? All tall and shiny, aluminium, some coloured bits of metal to kind of give it a bit of personality, kind of make it look contemporary. But for the most part, they all look the fucking same. Annoying. And you hardly see anyone coming out of the flat, going to a shop and buying something, right? You don't really see that. I'm not sure if you noticed it, but when you walk by a new build flat, have you ever seen anyone going in or going out? Not really. Are they all self-employed? Do they all have a weird timetable? Are they all at work at the same time? I don't know, but I'm intrigued by the fact that when you walk past these buildings or flats late at night, especially because I tend to go out late at night and get a bit fucked up. But when you go out late at night, you walk past these buildings and there's no lights on, right? At normal times, not like crazy times, normal times. Sometimes, before 12, when people are usually still up watching Netflix or whatever. But maybe they're just using the light illuminating from their phone and from their laptop, so they don't need to have a light on in the house. I don't know. But I never see lights on, and I never see people popping out to go Tesco Express and buy something. Never in my whole experience. And usually you say, oh, why Tesco Express? I guess, well, you know why? Because most of those buildings next to them are Tesco Expresses. They don't build them in areas where there's no Tesco Express. There's always a little Sainsbury's, little Tesco somewhere. I don't think you've ever seen a new build flat that doesn't have one of those shopping centers near. Now, is there a conspiracy conspiring against local residents to introduce these big chain supermarkets inside their neighborhoods and then have buildings like high-story buildings that are rented out to conglomerates and really high net worth individuals from the far eastern bloc? Is there a conspiracy against people that live in those areas not to live there? I don't know. Look into it, as Eddie Bravo once said. But what I do know is I don't see anyone going out Tesco Express. So that was basically my morning. Apart from that, I'm feeling good, feeling fresh. Going to record this podcast, do a bit of a mix later on today. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to start up a little online series of mixes. I'm gonna title this one Persistence Radio show, like how most people have it, because I've got like a Persistence Radio kind of like quote unquote fake record label that I've got on SoundCloud. I don't put any songs up on there, it's just mixes. So I'm gonna kind of divert all my mixing attention to Mixcloud and put them on there, because there's like a big like social platform on there, and loads of guys and girls who are in the scene kind of like stay on there. So I'm gonna just like throw my shit up them, shove it in their face, and show them how much better I am than most of them. Whatever, keep on my grind. And then on the top of that, I'm also gonna do like a little fake like in bar recording thing. I'll design like a little flyer that looks like a fake bar, maybe call it my name or call it Rosie's or something, or whatever it might be called, and then kind of do a mix series based on that. And the whole idea behind that is to kind of do a mix series of a recording that you might hear in a bar somewhere, or something that you might use before you go out during your pre-drinking sort of thing. So watch out for that. It'll be on my SoundCloud, it'll be on my Mixcloud page, sorry, which is mixcloud.com DJ Agostinho. I know it's a shit URL, but I picked it ages ago and I can't change it. So it's mixcloud.com/DJ Agostinho. You'll be able to find all my mixes on there. I'll be uploading all of them on there. You'll see the Persistence Radio Show and my yet to be unnamed bar mix series, which is probably called Labertie's Mixes, kind of harking back to the night that I have at Heathcote and Star, or something else along those kind of lines. But watch out for those two bits and pieces coming to you very soon. And in a couple of weeks too, I've got loads of pictures I have developed too that I'm going to go put up onto Facebook. I think I might tell people to kind of like tag their friends and everyone on their pictures. I think that might be what I might do. Or I might just put them up somewhere else. Or I might try and make a zine. But I'm going to figure it out. But I've got a few pictures I've got to pick up in a couple of weeks. So I've got loads of film images of nights out that people would be desperate to see. So that should be good and very advantageous. Apart from that, before we get into the show, I've been reading this book, right? Murder Machine, by Gene Mustaine and Jerry Capici. And it's a fucking frightening book, right? Because, you know why it's frightening? Because I'm a bit of a sucker for mob dramas. I love mob series. I've watched all the, everything else everyone else watches, like Narcos and El Chapo. I've watched Cocaine Cowboys documentary. I watched the Italian TV series called Gomorrah, which is based on the Sicilian mafia? No, the mafia in Napoli, Napolitanesian or Napoleon, what do you call it, Napolitanesian? Anyway, a gang based in Napoli, inner city, kind of like, it kind of pulled back the curtain on the inner city lives with people that live in Napoli or Italians live in Napoli, and you kind of got to saw how grimy it was. It's not the whole like, Rome, Milan, Venice kind of image of Italy. This is like the real kind of like brass necks, boots to the ground, gypsies, immigrants, all kind of conversing in this like, really dilapidated area within Napoli, where it's a bit of a no-go zone for some portions of the police. I've watched all that kind of stuff. I'm starting to watch La Farina, which is on Netflix too, which is another Spanish drama, which is based upon the cocaine trade in the 80s, I think, off the coast of where's a place? Not Fuerteventura. Anyway, I forgot the name of it, but there's a coast where most of the drugs was coming in from like Morocco, some of the hashish and all that stuff, or some of the coke that was coming in from South America was traveling through southern parts of Africa, traveling its way to Morocco, and then finding its way into Europe through that hub. I forgot what the coast is called. But anyway, Alicante. I forgot. Anyway, it doesn't matter what it's called. So I'm into all that sort of stuff, right? And I've got to the point where, and obviously series like, linked to drugs, but series like Bodyguard that's on BBC now, which is fucking amazing. But I'm into all this sort of shit, but you get sometimes desensitized by a level of violence that was involved in securing a drug route, or for kind of establishing a name within the gang culture, for showing dominancy or authority, for maybe intimidating your opponents, for maybe putting your comrade, your kind of like soldiers in check. You kind of take for granted the level of violence that's needed in order to keep these guys in checks, right? Because most of these guys are kind of wild men and women. So some of them may be close to sociopaths, psychopaths. They're kind of on the fringes, right, of society by and large. And operating on the fringes, you have to do fringy shit to make sure that kind of operation keeps running. But with these dramas and stuff, and even stuff like Sicario, kind of did a good job of kind of illustrating the level of violence and brutality that kind of goes hand in hand with the drug trade, especially in parts of Central Southern America. it did a really good job at highlighting it, but you get desensitized from it, right? It doesn't really strike a chord as well as it should do, right? A woman getting her head blown off her shoulders doesn't necessarily take your breath away as much as it should do, right? But the thing about books that is so underrated, which is probably the reason why a lot of people say you should read more books, but I know I don't really succumb to the idea because I think it's a little bit like intellectual masturbation. People say, oh, people should read more books, because what it does is that through proxy of just saying it, right, you're virtue signaling, because you're indicating to everyone else that you read books and you've gained a lot of value from reading books, and now you're preaching to me and telling me I should be reading books. And if there's one thing this society doesn't like anyone doing is preaching, even if you're preaching on the good side of things, even if you're like promoting women's rights, or you're kind of championing the cause of people that are marginalized, minorities and stuff. No one likes someone that's overly preachy about stuff, right? It just comes across a bit disingenuous, right? And there's also the idea that you're kind of painting other people in the corner, and you're lifting yourself up in a pulpit. No one likes that. But I think one of the benefits, like again, just to kind of extrapolate the whole everyone should read, but I think one of the benefits of reading is the imagination, right? Because I remember when you were a kid, right? I know when I was a kid, the great thing about being a child is that you entertain yourself with the most mundane of things, right? I remember when I was little and my mum couldn't afford to buy me a PlayStation, I went into my room and I just made a PlayStation out of cardboard. Super sad, right? Someone would maybe use that story at the beginning of X Factor, right? Before they go and sing like a terrible rendition of a Boyz II Men record, right? And get everyone crying. But I think that's what made me. That's what made me the person I am today. Like, I went into my room and I got creative. And I started making a PlayStation out of cardboard. The whole thing. I somehow find out the specs of what the size should be. I made like an actual model of a PlayStation using just cardboard. Had the controller, like made like a fake TV, like insane level of creativity. But I entertained myself for a long time doing that. Give a kid under 5 a cardboard box big enough that they can jump in and see how much fun they'll have the rest of the evening, right? Your imagination is just so free at that time in that period of your life. But then the older you get, the more responsibilities you have, the more expectations the society places upon you to be a well-functioning adult, and the more you have to kind of operate within these different kind of arenas where it requires you to wear a different mask, you start to lose the kind of imagination, and you start to kind of like plug into being a bit more pragmatic, right? Being a little bit more close to reality, right? Being a little bit more clued into what's going around you, and not kind of letting your mind wander. So you don't really have that sense of wonder anymore. So sometimes when you see things illustrated on TV again and again, such as like violence in gangs, you get desensitized from it. It doesn't really affect you the same way. It doesn't affect you the way it should affect you, right? So when you read a book, and again, reading this book, Murder Machine, which kind of details the beginnings of the mob in Brooklyn, right? With like kind of like highlighting kind of the hitmen of the Gambino family. It says here in the back, right? You start to realize, like, Jesus Christ, man, like these were brutal times. Like, I'm reading a bit now, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through about it, or the first quarter of the way through the book, and there's parts of this book where it details the Unruh Quentin. Like, there was times when, you know, when some of the junior members of the mob who didn't have contacts within the police force suspected somebody of maybe snitching, or if they got picked up for a speeding ticket, but through Chinese whispers, the message got back to the crew that this guy got picked up and he was involved in a drug deal gone bad. If they got any suspicion that this person might snitch, they'll just kill them. And they'll kill anyone connected to them. So they'll kill the mistress that he was hanging around with, who you maybe said too much to. They'll kill maybe the kid who always come to the garage and stay down after work. They'd kill every single person who they had an inkling, right, might have done something wrong. Now, kill them. They didn't kill them in a very, I say, quote unquote, honorable way, right? They took them out in the most brutal way possible. Set them up in a way like, there's a story where they set up a girl in a way that she was driving her car, and they told her to meet someone outside of a house. One guy pulled up on the driver's side, on the non-driver's side of the window. Another one pulled up on the driver's side of the window. The other one, so she didn't see the other guy. So the other guy kind of like gets her attention to start talking. As she turns around, another guy comes on the other side where the driver's side window is and shoots in the back of the head 2 times. Just didn't see it coming. Do you know what I mean? Like, one minute you're talking to this guy, and next minute you've got a silencer pressed up to the back of your skull, and 2 shots are going in the back of your cranium before you've even blinked, right? And then they take this girl's body and they take it to like a butcher's, and decide to dismember it because they don't want any evidence getting anywhere. So they cut it up into small pieces, put it into a bag, and then split the body, like put it into different cars, and then have it split all across New Jersey and dumped to different places so to throw people off. Like, insane. Like, people just dying again and again, like in the most brutal way possible. Like a bomb, they placed a bomb underneath someone's car and it didn't go off as intended, and they had to take it off, and taking it off required maybe the person who put the bomb there his arm might blow off. Like, just insane levels of violence, man. Insane levels of violence. And you forget it again, read these books, but god damn it, man. It makes you think, in it, like if they just legalized drugs, right, they'd get rid of all these problems. Maybe it's a bit simplistic to say it, but that might be true, right? They legalize drugs. Because everyone does drugs, right? Everyone, from the lowest rungs of society to the quote unquote upper echelons, everyone does recreational drugs. Some people can handle it, some people cannot. But as I think as grown-ups, you should be allowed to partake in as much drugs as you want. And if it goes wrong, then it's your responsibility as an adult. Take responsibility for it, right? It's the same way with the kind of policing of language. I think your right to offend me shouldn't trump my right to offend you. Like, if you say something that's wrong that I don't like, and I switch, or we get into a physical altercation, that is what happens when you're an adult, right? You have to kind of run the risk that you might say something that might upset somebody, but you have to be allowed to say that thing, right? You have to be allowed. We have to live in a society where people can say things. You can't be, oh no, you can't say that, can't say this, blah, blah, blah. So people should be allowed to take drugs, should be allowed to do whatever they want to do. And what would end up happening was that all these needless lives that are being lost off the back of suspicion that you're going to talk to police, or that you're going to say something incriminating, that you're going to get people in trouble, and that you're going to maybe bring down this criminal network, will be completely gone. Right, completely gone. I'm not sure how you police it. I'm not sure how you tax it and stuff, but come on, man. Let's, like, honestly, some of the lives that were lost in this book, like, just the first quarters, like, it's so sad. Like, some people were completely innocent, did nothing wrong, were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or they spoke to the wrong person, or the person that went back and reported it to the gang maybe saw something that they thought they saw, but they didn't see that. Man. So it's a bit of a heavy read. Probably not the best thing to reading during the week when you're working or going on your lunch break. I remember one day over the weekend, like I mentioned previously, I read this before I went to bed and had the worst nightmares I've had in a long time. And I woke up, I was like, shit, why am I having such a bad nightmare? I forgot I had like a nightmare that someone came into our house and, like, I don't know, home invaded us. I got beaten up close to death. Like it was just a fucking brutal nightmare that I had. And I was like, oh, I fucking read Murder Machine, right? Before I went to sleep. Like, it's not nighttime reading, I guarantee you. Because I remember Tim Ferriss saying the same thing, right? He said you shouldn't read, like, quote unquote non-fictional motivational books before you go to sleep, right? Because it just, like, it fires off every single neuron in your head. You're thinking about ideas and projects and stuff you want to launch and you're so anxious you don't sleep that well. I remember I used to do that quite a lot. I'll be fidgeting a lot in bed, right? And then the brunette would not be happy at all. So, don't read motivational books before you go to sleep. And also don't read books about, the origins of the Gambino family assassins. Like, it doesn't end well for anybody. So I highly recommend it anyway, regardless. Murder Machine by Gene Mustaine and Jerry Capici. It's a brilliant book. And if you're a fan of all those mob documentaries and series on Netflix and stuff, you'll really enjoy it. But anyway, enough about me rapping on about the mob, because I'm not in the mob. Even I wish I was. I'm not Italiano. Let's jump into some topics. So, number one, I just watched this just now before I had breakfast, and whilst I was kind of like debating what topics I should speak about in the podcast, but I just listened to this now. I listened to Russ's interview on the Breakfast Club. Russ is an internet pariah of some sorts. I don't know why. If you're not familiar with him, Russ is a New Jersey born, Atlanta raised rapper who kind of rose to prominence maybe a couple of years ago. Was known for releasing a song a week on SoundCloud. Some of these songs were getting crazy amounts of views, crazy amounts of hits. I came in contact with him through his videos first on YouTube, and then I saw his videos and thinking, how has this guy got, sometimes when you stumble upon people's profiles and they've got millions of hits, but you don't know why, because you've never heard of them, right? Because, in your head, you always think like, I know everyone, I've got all the knowledge, the fucking confidence and brass neck on some of us, right? Where we kind of like, oh, how come I don't know him? Well, you don't know him because you don't know him. You know what I mean? Like, the world's a big place, my G. Like, you're not meant to know every single artist in the world. And if you did, there's probably a bad thing, right? If this is one of the most popular music genre in the world, as voted recently, then you shouldn't know everybody. You shouldn't know everybody. It's a simple fact of the matter. So anyway, so I saw this interview with Russ, and it's a very, very eye-opening interview. Something that is much needed in a culture nowadays. Whether you're US or UK based, there is there's always a need for balance, right? In the populace, or within artistry, or within just commentary, there needs a balance for all the kind of like carry on family, sort of like everything is okay. The place, we're in the best place that we can in this. We're in the best times ever. If you want to make it in industry, blah blah blah. For all that good stuff, for all that good energy, there also has to be a balance, a kind of counterbalance that's able to kind of point out all the things that are going wrong. Now, it's a hard position to take up, right? Because nowadays, unfortunately, the moment you critique anything, or you kind of like throw shade, or you kind of disavow, not disavow, or you kind of, I don't know, you kind of write off something, right? You're accused of being a hater, right? You're not allowed not to like things, it seems like, right? You kind of have to like things, or just not say you don't like things. So someone like Russ probably isn't the right. He probably isn't. He's probably came up in the wrong era, and he probably is somebody that a lot of people that are the same age as him think is a bit corny, right? He's the guy in the party, as I think Charlamagne pointed out to him. He's the dude in the party who's telling everyone like not to drink too much, right? He's kind of spoiling everyone's fun for the most part. But I think in general, there needs to be a voice as well that counterbalances this whole notion that everyone has to be signed to a label. Everyone has to do artist A&R this way. Everyone has to promote drugs, pills, and lean and all that sort of stuff. There has to be a counterbalance to it. Because like I mentioned previously, I've mentioned it a few times, most of these people that are promoting the overt drug use, especially doing it to an extent that's a bit crazy, most of them are probably not doing it the way that you think they're doing it. They're not even using as much as you think they're using. They're just using that kind of caricature because a lot of people are kind of going through problems. A lot of people are bored, right? A lot of people are just trying to fill up time. A lot of people are just trying to fast forward through life, right? And the best way to fast forward through life is to always be high and to always be drunk. That's the easy way to do it. Trust me, from somebody that's binge drinked and binged drug taking, right, for a long time, I know what that where it comes from, right? It comes from a real place, right? You're in a place where you don't really enjoy your current circumstances. You're not really enjoying the fact that things are taking a bit longer than that you want it to take. You don't enjoy the fact that you're working a job that you don't enjoy. You don't enjoy the fact that you're working with people that you don't like. You don't enjoy the fact that I don't know, you don't talk to your mum or dad. Like, there could be loads of different scenarios, right? So the best way to do it is, the best way to numb yourself from all that pain is to make yourself drunk, it's to make yourself high. It's just what people do, right? I think the moment kind of like recreational drugs came into the populace, that's what they were kind of co-opted to be used for. I think depression and sadness, all those kind of things existed anyway, especially if you're living in a society where everyone's kind of close to each other and you see someone with a gated house, you kind of always want to have that, and you kind of feel a little bit sad when you can't provide for your family and blah, 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 blah. It's going to exist, but people will self-medicate rather than kind of critically do the hard work, right? Kind of like strip away all the fat and really look in the mirror and see what they can do better. They'd rather just kind of like skip all that because that's really painful to look at, that's really painful to deal with, and just kind of self-medicate. But someone like Russ is needed in the populace. We need to have a voice, especially for the young kids coming up, who's saying maybe taking drugs and promoting drug use isn't cool, right? Because I think he mentioned it a few times in the interview that he's not against people saying kind of talking about the woes of their drug use through their music, because music is a platform for you to kind of express your truth. But he has a problem with somebody promoting drug use, especially excessive drug use, on Instagram, right? It's a bit weird, right? It's like when you see those guys. I think my friend sent me a video the other day of those dudes, like, there's a video going around on Instagram, because I'm not on Instagram at the moment, but a video going on Instagram of these two guys on a Ryanair flight, racking up lines, right, as the flight's taking off. It's just like, it's unnecessary. You don't need to do that, right? Or when people post stuff of, there's like a subreddit called like Trashy or something, right, where they post a picture of somebody getting high on a bus or something, right? It's just a little bit, it lacks a little bit of class, lacks a bit of it lacks a bit of self-preservation, and lacks a bit of dignity. You're not really respecting those around you because not everyone wants to see that. So it's not cool, right? But for some reason, some of these younger kids, because social media is something that is ingrained in them, and they don't really see any difference between reality and social media. It's just one thing. Maybe it could be argued that it is just one thing. It's just the reality that we all kind of live in, because again, it affects. Sometimes when someone says something to you mean on the internet, it does affect you in real life. So maybe it is real life, right? That could be argued that. But they don't see any separation between it, so they kind of will post everything. So that's why the whole maybe Finstagram thing came up, right? Because you could post stuff, you could post messy shit, right? Because no one wants to look messy on their main profile. Everyone wants to look like polished. But on your Finstagram, you can be messy and post like bottles of drink you're drinking, lines, or insinuating that you're doing lines with a card and a straw, or a picture of you like smashed or pulling a face. Like you can do that. But I think Russ' main point that he mentioned in interviews that he doesn't like when people kind of promote on the Instagram because, unfortunately, which is a good point I never heard anyone mention, some of these artists have a bigger reach on social than they do on in their music. Or for the most part, most people aren't really listening to the music. They're just vibing, right? That's that word, right? What's a vibe? Oh, it's a vibe. It's a vibe, right? Why? Because you're vibing to the music. The feel is giving you. It's sort of like, you know what a vibe is to me? It's sort of like encapsulating like Kid Cudi's right, it's all that shit, right? That he's not saying anything, but you feel something. It tugs at your heartstrings, all right? Or when Playboy Cardi does, yeah, but no, it's me, right? Those voices, like you don't know what the fuck he's saying the first time round, right? But it gets you, like like it gets you, and you want to just like jump up and mosh and just, you know, that vibe. It kind of gives you. I mean, I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about it now, right? So you have to be a bit more responsible to it. And like I said before, I think it's really necessary in the culture. I really am enjoying his new album that's come out, actually. It's called Zoo. It's out now on all streaming platforms, so go pick that up now. Russ called Zoo. But I'll play a little bit of the interview. He posted some clips on his Twitter page that I thought were pretty entertaining. But overall, it's a really good interview. It's Charlemagne and Envy kind of asked him some good questions. He kind of laid out some of his kind of groundings, what he kind of thinks about things. And all in all, I think it was a very good interview, and it kind of made me more of a fan of Russ, I think, in general. Even though I was a fan of him anyway, I'm more of a fan of him now I've heard kind of him speaking. But let me play some of it now for you guys, and you can make your own mind up. I'm trying to get this up now. Okay, so here it goes. Here's Russ on the Breakfast Club. I'll link it again below in the description. You guys can check it out. But here's a little short clip of him.
At the same time, and it's so true.
I think J. Cole said that. I mean,
you want us to have thick skin and thin skin at the same time, and it's so true.
I think J. Cole said that. Or maybe Jazz Fly.
Jazz Fly. That's who it was. Jazz Fly.
Yeah.
Jazz Fly.
Jazz Fly.
I don't know at all, but I just saw it on Twitter. I was
that's
like,
one of my best friends. Great person.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. So I was like, this is the realest stuff ever because, you know, as an artist, in order for me to relate to you, and in order for me to maintain a certain level of humanity and be sort of amongst, I gotta be sensitive. That's what people don't understand. Like, artists have to be sensitive. If we're not sensitive, I'm making brainless, mindless music, surface level stuff. In order for me to make Losing Control or songs that I'm digging deep or begging you or this whole Zoo album, I gotta be sensitive. I gotta let stuff get to me. Otherwise, I can't give y'all the real. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you're asking that person who you demand to be sensitive and relatable enough to relate to your human emotions. You're asking that person to have thick enough skin to not feel anything that is inspiring the music that you love. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. I think society needs to really look at themselves and take responsibility for what they're doing to artists. You feel me? And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of artists that pass away young because we're the first generation that's experiencing this stuff, bro. You know what I'm saying? This is not regular. You feel me?
Now, that's a very, very solid point, right, to make, right? That the internet has to be held more responsible, right? People on the internet need to be held more responsible for the things that they say, which inevitably lead to some of your most well-known people that you know on the internet kind of acting out. You kind of can see the same thing happening with the whole Cardi B and Nicki and Minaj situation, right? Both fan bases perpetuated this like beef that was maybe legit in the beginning, maybe not legit in the beginning, but then turned legit. Then through just like proxy of their own camps talking to each other and kind of hating each other, both camps kind of built up animosity and a real kind of beef emerged, right? So you're seeing kind of the negative sides of aspects of Instagram, and also you're seeing the sides of it with Cardi B in terms of like, you know, everyone kind of loves her for being ratchet and kind of promotes the idea that she's real and she's ghetto and all this sort of malarkey, but then when she acts out, they get surprised and they get kind of a bit off-put that she would kind of go and lunge at Nicki Minaj during a Fashion Week show, right? So it's the idea that, you know, in one part the crowd is demanding you to be real, to keep it authentic, but in the moment you keep it too authentic, they're all kind of like shocked and surprised, right? It's a kind of quote unquote the idea of everyone celebrating a gun-toting rapper, but in the moment he shoots everyone, everyone's sort of like, oh, this guy's an animal. But I do understand, I do kind of get a feeling that also, this whole Spotify licensing deal that they're doing with independent artists, right? I think another part of this that is something that needs to be looked at in terms of artist development, with an artist on a label or a licensing agreement on a streaming platform. There needs to be some fiscal responsibility on the stream platform side to have someone in-house, right? Forget marketing, because everyone can do that. Everyone can do social media calendars. Everyone can try and create a bit of viral content marketing, right? To get some growth, acquire some new listeners, whatever it may be, right? Everyone knows the tricks, right? Those are things that you can do quite easily by just analyzing the game and kind of having your finger on the pulse of culture. But I think a role that's kind of overlooked that I think a lot of kids should kind of get involved in. And again, for everyone that's all out there and wants to be the guy in front of the camera, the guy or girl singing in front of the camera, stop, relax, and maybe you could be of use behind the camera, right? I think a role that was something that could really be used is someone to provide artists with guidance and support to navigate throughout this social media landscape that we're in now, especially if you're 25, especially if you're under 25, right? Like Russ is, right? He's kind of like a bit of an old soul, and maybe because he's been grinding it out on SoundCloud before SoundCloud was a thing that people were looking for to find new artists, right? He was sort of like there just when it was kind of popping off and had to kind of really hustle to get his name out there, which has kind of led him to have maybe more life experiences and to kind of get, when you've been told no a lot, that's what you sound like. You sound like Russ. You've been told no, he's been not given a chance, and you've had to prove people wrong and again and again. You build up this little kind of like, not resentment, but you kind of don't get certain people. You kind of don't get it, right? You don't get how certain people can be like. But I think there needs to be a division within a streaming platform, within a record label that helps artists and supports them emotionally to navigate through these social media waters, because it's a really interesting time that we're living in where you're able to interact with your fans directly. I'm able to clarify. Imagine if I was someone popular, right? And a newspaper did a hit piece on me, right? They kind of said something about me that wasn't necessarily true, or they kind of did an interview about me trying to praise me, but then in the end, when it came out, it was a disparaging piece that aimed to kind of like tear me down. I can immediately, within seconds of reading that, or minutes of reading that article, post a statement up on Twitter to all my fans that like me and follow me, to all my even detractors, people that don't really care or non-plus just want to follow the show, and let them know what the actual deal is, right? I can clarify things very, very quickly. I can upload new music. I can let you know updates on my tour, updates on my personal life. We can share, we can interact, right? I'm a big artist guy. We can interact. But this other part of it, which is not that great, is that you hear everything. Right, you hear everything. It's paramount to. It's this idea that when people say, "Oh, I wish I had a superpower." Listen to people's what they thoughts in their head. But some people say, "No, you actually wouldn't want to listen to it because it might be quite overwhelming." Right? It's sort of like when what was that story I remember reading about people who work in call centers are the most depressed, right? Because they're having to interact with some of the worst segments of society, and also you're talking to people who have an axe to grind consistently, who kind of hate your guts, right? Sort of like the kind of like traffic warden, ticket, what they called? The people that put tickets in your cars, those kind of dudes, right? Imagine the kind of psychological turmoil you must go through every single day, knowing that people just hate you based on your uniform, based on the hat you wear, right? It might be the same with police officers, right? Where you're just constantly getting this hate. So there has to be a division within record labels that can deal with that and guide artists through that, those navigating waters of understanding that, the kind of Drake method of like 72 hours, wait until if someone's outraged by something you said on an interview, wait 72 hours. The outrage is still there, then address it, but usually it dies after 72 hours, right? How to navigate hate on Twitter, how to maybe post and dump, like, post something on social media, dump it for the day, and then reply or look over your mentions the following day, so you don't get reactive and you have a bit of distance with the content. Like loads of little emotional kind of like quote unquote things that can help artists be whole inside, because the outside world, the social media world, is a bit vapid, and also some of the things that come at you are incredibly vile. So I really feel Russ's point on that regard, and I'm hoping nowadays there would be, because I'm sure there's people within record labels who just handle Instagram, which Instagram's a new platform, so they kind of build a job around the things that are happening within the culture, right? So I'm hoping there's a thing that exists in record labels where they hire somebody who's an emotional support system who can help people, not a manager, not those kind kind of people, like someone that can actually be there and kind of manage you through the struggle, who can kind of sit down with you and present you a way to kind of like overcome this struggle, to kind of maybe change the narrative of how you're perceived on the internet, or to maybe lean into a little bit more. Those kind of things will be super interesting. But I definitely recommend you check it out. Russ interview on the Breakfast Club. I'll link it in the show notes. You guys can check it. But it's a very, very interesting interview, and it will hopefully give you another, it will probably hopefully expose another side to you of Russ and the things that he's going through career-wise. Anyway, what's next? What have I got here? DWE wasted talent. All right, so this is an interesting part of it because I'm a big fan of DWE, and he's one of my most favorite MCs of all time. So DWE recently released an album called Jackum, right, which I've been listening to a lot lately. I've been playing it when I've been running. Jackum. It's really, really Jackum. Really, really good, right? It's a really good album. But listening to the albums, it kind of, whenever I listen to the DWE recording material, I always get a bit sad, especially because there's some tracks on the album that have lyrics from like, I don't know, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, right? So it's a bit like, oh, Jesus Christ, man. Like, in the other art form, if you rehash lyrics from 15 years ago, like, you know what I mean? It'll be the end of you. But DWE is probably one of the most technically gifted MCs that we've had, right? In the UK history, UK music history, right? Probably one of the most talented craftsmen of constructing lyrics within a fast cadence that we've ever seen in our modern time. Like, he's incredible. And I think ask most big MCs, ask most underground MCs, ask most DJs, producers to name their top 5 of all time, DWE will be in it. Like, without a shadow, I don't think anyone will not have DWE in their top 5. If you do, you're a troll. So I love DWE. He's amazing, right? But DWE for me has always represented something that I like to call the wasted talent theory, right? Which is something that's not really much of a theory, but if you watch the Bronx Tale, you know that there's a thread running through a Bronx Tale about a wasted talent, right? About this kind of friction between somebody who has potential and ends up doing a mundane job to support their family, and also somebody who has all the extravagances that a mob or criminal lifestyle will bring, but doesn't have the anchor, doesn't have the support system of a family behind him that kind of will be there regardless of the money, the jewels, and the cars and shit, right? So it's kind of conflict, and in between it is called a young kid who kind of idolizes his father, but also sees the errors in his ways and sees that he hasn't actually actualized his talent. And I think I remember someone saying the other day, I think it must have been maybe on Joe Rogan or someone else saying, or maybe Christopher Ryan on Tangentially Speaking, saying sometimes like your parents' expectations without you knowing, or no, your parents' failed dreams without you knowing is like a weight on your shoulder, right? Because it's sort of like you're living your life trying to correct the wrongs of your parents, like how they fucked up. It's like a thing that you do without realizing, right? You try and correct the wrongs of your parents, whether they brought you up wrong, whether they hit your parent, whether they hit your mum, whether they were absent, whether they were overly overbearing. You're trying to correct the wrongs of your parents in order not to repeat the mistakes, but lo and behold, along that journey, you're also carrying this weight on top of you. So the whole story of A Bronx Tale is this kid who's trying to kind of figure out whether or not he should idolize his dad, who kind of is a bit of wasted talent, or he should idolize this drug dealer, right? In this mob boss, this made man who's also got all the things that he wants materialistic in life, but is also lacking something on the inside to keep him whole, right? He's chasing something. And this kind of clip from A Bronx Tale kind of encapsulates it. Hopefully I don't get pulled off YouTube for playing it. Has it got a copyright note on it or anything? I don't think so, but let's see. Hopefully I don't get taken off YouTube for playing it, but I'm going to play it anyway so you guys can hear, and then we'll come back on the other side of it.
You take a ride on the bus with me, okay?
City Island was the last stop on my father's route. It was one of our favorite places. It was like going on a vacation for a day. My dad would listen to his jazz and we would talk about baseball.
Dad, can I have an ice cream?
We do our job first, and then I get you an ice cream. Okay?
Okay, Pop. Let's play the game, Dad.
Okay, let's see how good you are today. Who was the last player to win the Triple Crown?
Mickey Mantle. Batting average, 353. RBIs, 130. Home runs, 52.
That's pretty good, son.
He's the greatest ball player that ever lived, Dad.
Oh, Joe Deep's the greatest ball player.
Yankee Clipper. 56-game winning streak.
That's right.
Nobody beat that, right, Dad?
Nobody beat that, son. You know why Joe D was so great?
Because he was Italian?
Well, that's part of it.
Then why?
Because he had more talent than anybody.
Talent?
That's right.
Do I have talent, Dad?
Of course you have talent. You got all the talent in the world.
Can I be a baseball player?
You can be anything you want to be. Remember, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. You could have all the talent in the world, but if you don't do the right thing, then nothing happens. But when you do right, guess what? Good things happen. You hear me?
Now that kind of encapsulates my thoughts succinctly on DWE, right? I always felt as if, like, being one of the biggest DWE fans, but again, not knowing all the inner politics that might have been occurring in his career, I always thought it was a bit of a waste of talent. Like, somebody that good, somebody obviously that talented, who has that unique of a voice. Like, there's no one else that sounds like DWE, right? He's just a unique MC. It was such a shame that he wasn't able to kind of blow and to kind of like get as successful as he should be, or have the notoriety that he's kind of obvious talent commands. But then there's a question that you have to think, right? A question that I kind of have been sort of like rummaging through in my head, right? I think for the most part, whenever people set out to do things, especially in their career, whether it's at work, whether it's creatively, you try and be the best, right? You want to be the best. You want to do the best job that you can do. You can do for the most part, right? But then there also is a point that you reach in life where you realize quite quickly that you might not be as good as you think you are, or you might not get to the position that you hope you would have got to, but you still have a career, right? So it's the whole kind of adage of, like, you know, in music, there's that idea that when you're producing a track, you'll always have the feeling that this one could be the one, because you don't know which one could be the one. You don't know which one's going to be your Hold On, I'm Coming Home. You don't know which one's going to be your In My Feelings. You don't know which one's going to be your Damn. You don't know which one's going to be your Stop Trying to Be God. You don't know which one's going to be your Kanye West Gold Digger. You don't know which one's going to be. So you're hoping the intrinsic feeling, the intrinsic thought in the back of your head is every track you make is the one, right? Nowadays it might be a bit different with the whole playlist generation. You know, you're making individual tracks just to hoping they get on the place. So you don't really necessarily put as much pressure on each single to be the one that performs the best, because you just want to have an album full of really good singles, so that it's evenly weighted, or that you don't have to go it all in and hope that this one's the one. But that expectation level of hoping that this one might be the one, right, has maybe led people to kind of have delusions of grandeur when it comes to where they are in the whole like ecosystem of artists that exist, right? Because there is the brutal fact, or the brutal honesty, is that most artists are not going to be Dizzee Rascal, right? Most people are not going to be Tiny Temper. Most people are not going to be Adele, right? Most people aren't going to be these people, right? They're kind of they're kind of the 1%ers, right? Who are able to kind of like command like top positions in the charts. You know, they get all the sponsorships, they get all the kind of not critical acclaim, but like, you know, they get all the kind of like press, media, general public acclaim. They're the ones everyone knows, right? They're the ones that get booked headlining most festivals. But for the most part, most people are able to also sustain a career. Maybe it's not a lot of money. Maybe it's like 30 to 60 grand a year when you break it down, or 100 grand a year. But I think if you went back in time and you told an artist in their bedroom when they were making beats on Fruity Loops on a fucked up computer or on a PlayStation, or on the Dreamcast, making a song on there, right? Or if you go to Adele when she was singing in a cupboard somewhere, if you told them that I'd pay you 100 grand a year just to make music and exist every year until the day you die, right? Doesn't matter if you've got a number one selling song or whatever it may be, or your song's in a movie, you're going to be guaranteed to be visible, right? So you're going to command an audience, you're going to tour, and you're going to earn 100 grand a year, but you're not going to be Ed Sheeran, for instance, right? You're not going to be that level of fame, but you're still going to be quite well known. Everyone will take it, right? But the problem happens that when you get into the music industry, you suddenly then start comparing yourself to everyone around you. You suddenly start to get a bit delusional. Your kind of minders and your team around you start to kind of pump you up, so you kind of feel a little bit higher or bigger than what you should be, or you can't really you don't have a good idea of where you are in the kind of like ecosystem of artistry. So that what ends up happening is that you keep chasing this dragon that doesn't exist, and one that you're never going to catch. And I think DWE is kind of maybe a twofold problem, in that he comes from grime, and grime has never really progressed. It never really evolved into a legit music industry, right? Which is why some people, especially some grime fans, have a little bit of a disdain when it comes to like UK rap or like Afro beats, right? Because they were able to figure that bit out. They figured out the business kind of like commercial side of making music. They figured out a way to kind of get their music on charts quicker. They figured out a way to kind of make videos that got played on YouTube millions and millions of times. They figured out a way to get booked during at kind of like mainstream festivals that don't necessarily appeal to like an urban crowd, quote unquote, right? They're getting booked at Reading, Leeds, Capital One Festival, all those kind of quote unquote vanilla festivals, right? They get booked in these kind of places. They figured it out. So some of the hate grime audience would have towards those places was that some of our most gifted lyricists, right, whether they're male or female, some of our most talented producers were kind of wasted on grime, right? Didn't really make any splashes apart from maybe a cult fan base or kind of like notoriety within the underground. But some of our best artists were kind of wasted on that scene, and they never really got to see the light of day, right? And some people don't know why DW is the best artist in the world because they don't really know who he is, right? Because they might have seen him in a couple of songs with Skepta and stuff, but for the most part, he hasn't been able to make the transition into kind of pop culture the same way some other MCs have. And again, it's a real wasted talent thing because obviously talent-wise he's talented, but he just never really was able to make it. When Digital Rascal blew up, everyone kind of thought the Digital Rascal thing might have been the turning point in grime, right? Because he was the one that made it, right? And he made it on his own terms, released an album, Boy in the Corner, that was 100% Digital Rascal, 100% grime, right? Really gritty. And then everyone tried to then make it, but didn't make it, didn't get signed, or the deal didn't work out. And then suddenly Digital Rascal's next album is all pop, and everyone's like, oh, okay, I guess that's what you have to do. And then we tried to follow that kind of template, but by then the kind of police decided to clamp down on people getting shows, and I just don't think there was a DIY ethic in grime that allowed people to kind of hustle and figure out and work it out. I don't know how they did it. UK rap drill, yes, it's kind of reached a point now where videos are getting pulled off the internet by the police and people are not be able to play shows. But I think they figured out a way to kind of get their music on playlists. Back then, of course, playlists didn't exist, but I always thought MCs going on radio and spitting freestyles for an hour and wasting all their good material on a freestyle that no one's paying for without channeling it into an album or a mixtape or a single was always wasted to me. It didn't make any sense, which is why Tingy Strider was one of the kind of like forerunners. He kind of led the way, especially during the period when he was just about to get signed, where he was able to kind of do both things. He was able to kind of spit for an hour on the radio station and also make a single, right? He was able to he kind of understood that, but I don't think grime figured it out. And unfortunately, DW is kind of a good example of it. He's releasing his debut album at 38 years old, right? It's insane considering when he came into grime, right? He must have come into grime before he was 18, right? He was famous in the ends, right? In my area, DW was like as famous as Drake, like, you know what I mean? People would be shouting his name down the street. You kind of felt he felt that he was appreciated. He felt like his talent he felt like, you know when you get reaffirmed that you're good at something. People are talking to you in the street, asking you about a lyric that you said, want to get a picture. Like, DW was well known, but he never really made that crossover. Now, maybe he's happy with his career. Maybe as a fan, I should be happy that he's still making music now, right? He doesn't have to work in Foot Locker or anything, right? He's able to kind of sustain a career. He might not be as rich or as well off as he hopes he would have, right? But I think there, again, needs to be a conversation within music to kind of like get down to the brass roots of like, what do you want to be? Or just in anything, in artistry in general, right? Or in life in general. Are you happy to be like well paid, right? But not have the notoriety that you want? And maybe not have even the kind of level of income, potential income revenues that you might wish you had, right? He doesn't have a Nike collaboration, right? People are not clamoring to kind of book DW on his own at festivals, right? He's usually being accompanied by people, Skepta's taking in place and stuff. He's not, do you know what I mean? That's where it kind of, I don't know, man. I don't know where I stand with it, but the album itself is amazing. I'm still kind of mulling over the fact, but I guess I'm just going to enjoy it. And also to make it matters even more amazing, DW is playing, playing in Germany playing in Berlin when I'm in there. He's going to be in Berlin, I think, on Saturday, the 29th of September for a thing called Bass Union, which is like a Red Bull Music Awards, Red Bull Music sort of thing that I'm going to go to. So that should be cool. So I'm not that bothered, right, in that regard. The album's good. I've been listening to it for like 3 days straight, and I really enjoy it. There's a review of his on The Guardian. I'm going to link into the show notes to check out. But yeah, DWE might be a waste of talent, but at least he's making music for me and for fans that appreciate him. And I'm just going to attend these shows. I think I mentioned it previously before about the liking stuff and leaving comments. I think maybe he's not as famous as I want him to be, right? Because I'm a major fan of DWE. I want him to be driving a pink Lamborghini down the street, right? I want him to be, I love DWE. He's my favorite MC of all time. But I think there's also appreciation we need to understand as fans or as supporters of these artists that the one thing that we can do is support them when they do release an album. We can buy their songs, we can buy their albums, we can stream their stuff online, we can buy tickets to their shows, we can buy their merch. That's the way we kind of show them their appreciation and make sure that he doesn't have to work. Again, it's not a cuss on the dude that was in the Cosby Show, but we don't want him to work at Trader Joe's. We don't want to see DWE at Asda's, pushing trolleys. Like, he gave so much to us during our youth that he does deserve to just put his feet up, man. Like, DWE was a soundtrack to my childhood, man, for the most part. Like, from 16 to 18, I listened to nothing but grime. Hip-hop can take a back seat, mate. I didn't listen to any hip-hop between the ages of, like, not even, maybe more than that, maybe like 14 to 18. I listened to nothing but grime, every single day. You know what I mean? Deja vu, rinse. Like, pirate radio stations every single day. And imagine I lived in Canning Casa Mouse, where most of the pirate radio stations were around that kind of area. So I'm a big fan of all that, man. But yeah, DWE Jackham is out now on all streaming platforms. Check it out. Great album. I'll link the review on The Guardian where he kind of talks about his struggles in the industry below, so you can kind of check it out. And we're going to move on to the next topic. And also check out Bronx Tale. Bronx Tale is an amazing movie, man. It came out a while back, but I definitely highly recommend you check it out. A really good mob movie. Fog 6 collection footwear. Oh yeah, shit! I've got to show this, innit? I've been a bit of a Fear of God groupie these last couple of weeks. I don't know why. I'm not sure if he's got investment. I don't know what's happened with Fear of God. I don't know whether or not you just reached this stage. It's like with music, right? Certain artists just get to a point, like Travis Scott Astro was a good example, right? You listen to that album, you're like, oh wow, like you see, all the elements of all his mixtapes, right? It's kind of suddenly got to this point where you reach a point where people can see, oh no, you're really good. You've separated yourself from the pack. Like, he is one of the leaders of that kind of generation of rappers in his kind of age group, right? He's kind of separated himself. Like, he can come up. He's doing arena tours, right, with no seating. Like, he's kind of up there. He's kind of headlining festivals and shit. So I don't know whether or not it's like a process of time. The more you do something, you just get better and better, and especially if you're like if you're self-critical and you hold your work up to, you've got a higher standard of your work than anyone else has, so you're kind of always fine-tuning your stuff. Or if it's just the fact of, what Kanye was kind of like rapping or badgering on about, which he was kind of led to be, which is kind of it's kind of true at the end when you see the quality of the product that he's making now, when Kanye was like ranting and raving about needing support from big conglomerates in order to kind of manufacture the things that he wants to the standard that he needs in order to kind of be compete at the same level as some of these big storied brands, right? I think it's mentioned like Stella McCartney, all that sort of stuff, right? Like, they have a manufacturing or a production arm of the company that's able to produce things at a high level, right? Similar to that kind of like Karl Lagerfeld documentary where he's just like sketching on a bit of paper, handing it to an artisan, and she's just like, making it like right there, like from the sketch. So that level of production you need in order to kind of like reach the high level. So I don't know whether or not it's investment or that, so it's been allowing him to kind of access to bigger factories or better factories and improve the finishing of his thing, or it's just that he's probably reaching 10 years in the game. He's done his 10,000 hours, and now this is the fruits we're seeing. But Fear of God has been absolutely smashing it. The clothes I mentioned, the other podcast featuring Jared Leto in the lookbook, looked incredible. And now we've seen a kind of preview of the footwear, which looks really, really interesting. Very, very different to what's kind of on the market at the moment, and just kind of very, very Fear of God looking. There's like a signature to his kind of stuff now that it was probably always there anyway, in terms of the silhouette, in terms of some of the color palettes he used, in terms of some of the kind of quote unquote applique or whatever you call that thing, right? There was a kind of a bit of a style DNA, but now you're seeing it even more come to prominence. So I'm put some of the things on screen now, but you got these sort of like, you could call them duck boots, right? Sort of like a slip-on Van with like a really thick sole. It might be thick or it might just be what's that thing called? Encapsulated. So like maybe the sole is a bit is lower than what it looks like, but the sole on the outer looks a bit more thick. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Alexander McQueen shoe, but everyone's kind of doing that thick sole. So I'm really a big fan of these, and with just minimal branding on the back of the heel too. It's got like a kind of hiking boot that's really nice too, with the standard kind of hiking boot look, with sort of like a suede nubuck kind of finish on the upper, with some little leather pieces, bits and pieces there, with a nice gum sole. I like the color here on the side. That's like a kind of like a blue and black with the kind of yellow striped hiking boots. Again, another hiking boot interpretation. I like this kind of like aspect of the Chelsea boot he's got here. It kind of fuses a bit of a cowboy boot in terms of the opening at the top. Also has a kind of exaggerated sole with the kind of like rubber outsole and a wooden heel at the back, which kind of looks really, really cool. I'm interested to see what the top of the shoe looks like. I really like this shoe here on the right. It reminds me of a Rick Owens sneaker that they have that's sort of like looks like a chucker boot. Reminds me a little bit like that. So it's sort of like a Chelsea boot without the lace, a Chelsea boot basically without any sort of elastic on the side, but then on the inside it's got 3 buttons. I'm assuming are the clasp and the zippers on the inside. Again, so a really nice shoe there. You've got more of the same sort of like Chelsea boot in different iterations. So navy, cream upper. You've also got the kind of Chelsea boot again in the kind of python, which looks amazing. And again, I like the mix of the rubber outsole and the wooden heel at the back. I'm not sure if it's rubber, maybe it's not, but it's really nice, and even the black looks amazing too. You've also got low sneakers that kind of look similar to kind of like a Vans Authentic, but kind of done in his sort of style, which I like too. Again, because I think that's the amazing thing with streetwear and men's fashion in general, right? You keep, it's like that whole adage that James Debbie said about Supreme when they asked him why he works with North Face so much, because they can't produce a technical piece of outerwear to the specification that North Face can at this current moment, right? They're not able to do it. So why do something half-hearted? Why not just partner up with someone that can do it until you reach the moment you can do it yourself? Like you're seeing now with Supreme, like they have probably the biggest collection of kind of rain jackets that they've ever had. They've had a few more jackets that look quite similar to a North Face Nuptse, which means they're increasing their production, or they maybe are partnering up with North Face in the background, and they're sort of like doing some kind of quote unquote white label kind of like in-house pieces tag with Supreme. But I like the fact that you can see brands like, for instance, Fear of God were collaborating with Vans for a while, because they probably couldn't produce shoes like to that level that they needed to produce them to. They weren't probably at that point, or they didn't have the revenue or the money to make them. And now that they kind of are in a position, they're starting to make their own thing, right? Because you want to kind of take a classic silhouette, but then kind of give it your own twist. Or maybe this sort of like a Fear of God Van sort of shoe, it might have a bit more of a bigger toe box, might be a bit more rounded. Maybe Jerry's got wider feet and he doesn't necessarily like the fact that Vans rub too much. Maybe all the Vans that kind of shoes that he makes will have like a cushioned collar, which is a bit more similar to like a Vans era instead of an Authentic. It doesn't have a cushion, or like loads of things that you can kind of add when you kind of like go through the ringer or going through collaboration. That's another thing that people don't really mention a lot. Collaboration is also a good point of like, to do some kind of R&D, to research and development on your own things. Again, more Chelsea boots that look really incredible. I like the way they look. They're going to drop really one trainers. I like this shoe too that looks similar to the Yeezy 750, right? The high. It looks very similar to it. So it's sort of like a chucker boot with the kind of flap that goes over the front. So again, kind of similar to kind of the Yeezy, but the flap sort of like all over the front of the laces. So sort of like a mid boot. Looks really, really interesting. I love these sort of like weird, slippery type things he's got here. If this screen loads, which is not going to load, hurry up. What's happened? Is it freezing? Come on, screen. Don't freeze on me. There we go. So this weird kind of like trainer that looks like a chucker boot looks really interesting too. I like the way that's done. So yeah, the whole collection is amazing, man. Again, like I said, I'm not sure if it's because of the money. I'm not sure if it's because of the production. KB is just improved now, but the stuff looks absolutely incredible. I can't wait to see what it looks like in store, if I do happen to be in the store, which I never am. But that looks absolutely incredible. What's next in terms of clothing? Oh, Nicholas Daley and George Cox shoes. These look fucking sick. Again, shoes I'm thinking about. I need to kind of like chill out again with the shoes, right? Because I'm that dude, right, that has all the trainers and shoes in the world, but not enough clothes. So, but I don't know what it is. I think it's the inner sneakerhead in me that kind of like have never kind of got rid of, back in the crooked tongue days and stuff. Like, you know, people would always post pictures of their trainers and not their outfits. And then when you made the transition from Crooked Tongues to FFUK or to like Fifth Dimension or to Super Future, we kind of always struggled. Sneakerheads really struggled with fashion, right? They still do now. You see sneakerheads on YouTube and they're the most corniest motherfuckers in the world, right? Always like, who's that dude that's always holding boxes to the side of his head like, and then kind of like blanking it out like, I wonder what might be in this box. Like some bullshit. Him sitting down like kind of like me with this dumb shit, books behind me, surrounded by boxes, talking about fucking trainers for 7 minutes. Like, fuck that. But they can't dress, right, for the most part. So maybe that's ingrained in me. I can dress. I think I've got my own quirky way of dressing with things, some would say, but I think I can put clothes together. But I think that that kind of sneakerhead culture of like always buying trainers and not buying clothes, because I can't remember the last time I bought a pair of jeans or a pair of trousers, but I can remember the last time I bought a pair of shoes, right? I'm always buying shoes. So I think that part of me would never kind of die, and I'm always kind of, whenever I see a new trainer, I'm always like, oh wow, another trainer, another black shoe that I might not need. Anyway, so Nicholas Daley, a very up and coming, or someone who's heralded as a young, bright future of London fashion, has designed a pair of George Cox creepers, which are quite popular within the Congolese and Angolan community. If you're absolutely familiar with that subsector of African London life, then you'd know. George Cox was a very popular brand of all the uncles. So he's made this collaboration that looks very uncly. I'm sure my uncles would be very happy to have them. They look incredible. I remember I used to wear a lot of these sort of like creeper shoes. Who's it? Underground and make a similar sort of style, a bit more of a thicker shoe. Sort of in the same vein as what's that dude's name? He's got Kate Moss and founded Dazed and Confused magazine. What's the fucking name? Anyway, that dude, he used to wear that kind of style of clothing. This was back in the day when the Vampire Weekend were around. Everyone was bred in them and you went to look indie. I always used to actually wear creepers, but these creepers look really nice, man. Nicholas Daley and George Cox collaboration. When did Hypebeast say they're coming out? No date of when they're coming out. Oh, it's available now at Dover Street Market, London. You can check them out. But yeah, they look so nice. I love them, man. So like a black brothel creeper, or a black sort of like, you know, classic George Cox creeper with a pointed toe, purple kind of like toe box area. The rest of it black. Very, very nice. Again, maybe a little bit nicer than the underground shoes because the sole isn't as stacked or exaggerated, but yeah, they look incredible, especially those trousers this guy's wearing in his model shoot. Looks really, 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 really nice. So highly recommend you guys check that out too. Nicholas Daley and George Cox collaboration coming at you very, very strong. Anyway, what's next on the docket? Let's keep this ball rolling, shall we? Supreme and Comme des Garçons. Ooh, wee, yee. I'm always a big fan of Supreme and Comme des Garçons. I think they always do great collaborations. I think Comme des Garçons' way of interpreting streetwear or just interpreting clothing always kind of gives Supreme a real contemporary sort of like modern fashion edge that they obviously don't want to do, right? I'm sure Supreme and streetwear diehards are kind of like they're a bit poo-poo with fashion. I love fashion, don't get me wrong. No, I love fashion. I'm a big fan of fashion. I'm also quote unquote a diehard streetwear person, right? But I appreciate the vapidness, the surface level aesthetic of fashion, right? That kind of like desire for beauty, for kind of that desire for individuality, even though you all start look the same, right? I appreciate that, and there's no better label than Comme des Garçons, right? Who every single season, Comme des Garçons home, Comme des Garçons shirt, especially for men's, probably put out the same silhouette every single season, but always have another interesting twist with it, right? For instance, like it's always blazers, it's always shirts, it's always crop trousers, shorts, and kind of like low thin trainers, right? It's the same thing every single season, but we just can't get enough of it. And Supreme and but I always feel as if like some of the creativity that it kind of goes gets taken for granted on the Comme des Garçons shirt or home line, where, you know, some of the button-up shirts are cut in really interesting ways. They're finished really well. Little tiny details. There's layering. There's lining. There's pleats. There's weird little things going on that I'll kind of overlook because they just look like an Oxford t-shirt or an Oxford shirt, button-up, whatever it may be. I think you start to appreciate a lot when they do it in streetwear because, you know, they take really classic staples within the Supreme kind of lineup of garments and they kind of give it their own little twist. And they've got another collaboration coming up for fall 2018 that was announced that I'm going to show you guys on screen now. I'm sure some of you guys have seen it, but it looks absolutely incredible. I love every single piece of it. I'm not going to lie. So you've got here a sort of like an overcoat with some pants and the trousers. I'm going to kind of skim through some of the bits, some of the kind of lookbook pieces, and kind of get to the actual pieces themselves because they look really cool. But yeah, the whole collection looks amazing. The thing as well that piqued my interest a lot were these Air Force Ones. How good do these Air Force Ones look? So they're a black and white Air Force One, and they've kind of basically spliced the swoosh right down the middle and kind of like, jolted it, so that it doesn't line up as what it should have. Now that's obviously a manufacturing thing or a finishing thing, or maybe it's just the fact that they just cut this line and then maybe just stitch the swoosh a little bit lower. But the way it's finished is just incredible. And in the back of it, they've got the Comme des Garçons shirt, sort of like imprint on the back, like stamped on it, and it sort of reminds me of that T-shirt that I think does the rounds on social media, sort of like really dyed out and white, but it's sort of like off-white because it's been worn so much and yellowed up, and it's got sort of like Comme des Garçons shirt, autumn, winter, You know what most brands do when they have a show, like Virgil does with off-white, like off-white crew to the staff coats. I love that kind of that simple branding that Comme des Garçons do all the time with it. And even just that shot with the trainers, I think I've bemoaned it a little bit with Hypebeast. Hypebeast have the worst trainer pictures ever, right? There's no real creativity with the trainer pictures. It's just some kid wearing a pair of trainers with pinrolls next to a puddle of water so the light bounces off. Like, it's just fuck off. Proper like shitty sneakerheadly pictures. But this is cool, man. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what's that? A pink vinyl curtain behind them, right? A nice chair with the shoes on top of it, an interesting angle, some nice little, maybe some post edits tweaks done in there with the contrast. But that looks interesting, an interesting way of displaying shoes. Like, people should do that more often. Trainer photography is really shit nowadays, man. It's either really overly stylized Nike talk sort of stuff where they get the laces timed together and the shoes are sort of like doing that weird love hearty thing, or it's really corny, cheesy stuff like a dude on a bridge wearing a pair of off-white blazers showing his tattoo, like FTW, fuck the world. Like, come on, chill out. Anyway, get back to the shoes. The rest of the clothing. The overcoat's really nice. Like, again, Chester, probably the thing that I wouldn't be that too worried about getting from the collection. I would have preferred them there to make like an olive or a cream variation of it again. I think that would have been very interesting, or maybe like a tartan, or maybe like with an all over print and the same graffiti that they used. But overall, I'm sure people will be into that. The Perfecto, I'm not really a fan of. Or the leather jacket with the graffiti on it, again, not really something that I would necessarily wear. It's probably a little bit too Pharrell, a little bit too in that kind of like I'm an artist sort of like realm. But I love this chore jacket with the graffiti all over it. Now, I'm not sure who the graffiti artist is because it's not credited in the notes. I'm not sure if it's someone famous, but I love the graffiti on it. Maybe could you, I don't know if you can zoom in and see what it is, what it says. I wonder who the graffiti artist is. It'd be interesting if it might be some guys from the Iraq crew, but this looks incredible. The graffiti jacket, the graffiti kind of like embellished chore jacket. Probably the nicest colors are maybe these two, right? The black and red and the white, like they look incredible. Or maybe if you just want a bit of subtlety, but if you look up close, you can see all the signs. The kind of navy is really nice too, and of course, the jumper is really nice. The kind of knit, the little knitwear with the Comme des Garçons shirt, Supreme on the front, looks incredible. I love it in red and black. Probably my two favorite colors. The shirt, of course, is incredible. Like, no one's gonna not like the shirts. I love the paneling that Comme des Garçons shirt always do with most of their shirts. The front panels usually gets edited, or sometimes they do the sleeves. Like, every panel's kind of sort of customizable. I wonder if one day Comme des Garçons shirt will end up doing like a Nike ID program. That'd be really interesting if they did that with shirts. That'd be super cool, where you can kind of like customize them online and then maybe pick them up in store or something, or maybe just get them delivered to your house like most companies do. Weird that some fashion companies are able to exist without having delivery services, right? Like, you have to buy stuff in store. It's interesting, isn't it? They're really resisting being digital. Same sort of thing like maybe some restaurants. They don't really have online booking or anything along those kind of lines. But anyway, the shirt's really nice too. I like the shirt. The button, the short sleeve button up or the short sleeve, is it a zip? No, I'm not really a fan of that. That's not for me. I'll count that out. The trousers, of course, will go amazing with the jacket. I'll wear those things all together. No shame in that. Not really a fan of the jogging pants. I think the jogging pant thing for me is a little bit, I've been put off by it, by the idea of looking like one of those palace knobs. Do you know what I mean? Like, kind of having like sort of like, weird sort of like Crystal Palace gangster look about me. I'm not really a fan of it. So I allowed that kind of like jogging bottom look. It's a shame because, when I think of jogging bottoms, I think of like Josh Kalis wearing jogging bottoms, wearing a big baggy jogging bottoms and a pair of like DCs, right? It's really cool. But, unfortunately, it's been co-opted by Wild, so I'll jump off that. And the hoodie is the best thing, right? Hoodie in the box logo, how they kind of spliced the box, same way they did with the swoosh, and did this effect, which is fucking sick. Like really, really cool. It's a tiny detail that works incredibly well. It doesn't carry through to the pocket, which is interesting. So it kind of goes behind the pocket, which is quite cool. It looks like the pocket is a lot more smaller than regular box logos too. I don't know if they kind of edit, if they kind of are able to edit the actual pattern of the hoodie. I think they probably do, innit? Because I'm sure Supreme kind of manufacture all their box logos in-house now. It's not kind of done. What's that Canadian company used to use it before? I'm sure they kind of maybe absorb them or kind of use them all in-house. So they kind of have their own shape that they sort of like use. The box logo is amazing with little detail on the back. So is the shirt. These two are going to sell out like hotcakes, of course. So yeah, it's probably one of the best Supreme Comic Garçons collaborations they've done in probably recent history in terms of the box logo and the chore jacket and the hoodie and stuff. It's gonna be really popular. I'm sure everyone's gonna like it. And I think that might be it. That might be where I end. The Agostinho Zinga Show episode number 105 because we reached an hour. I don't know, go any more longer than that. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys with me, hanging out, shooting the shit, talking about stuff that we enjoy, streetwear, fashion, music industry, culture in general. Bingo! We love it. As always, if you want to check out any other things that I do or things on the internet, please head off to my website at agostinhozinga.com. You find all my blog, you find all my writings, you'll find all my DJ mixes, you find a place to contact me. You can support me on Patreon too if you like what I'm doing. Support me on Patreon. Help me to buy a beer and to keep this house moving. I'm gonna probably look into get in a studio very, very soon in order to kind of have a space that I can kind of always kind of go back to, and a space that I can kind of really express myself, because kind of doing it at home is fun, don't get me wrong, but it'd be nice to kind of go somewhere else and really kind of lock in and maybe do a few more live streams, maybe do something on Twitch, maybe do something with other guests as well, because I can't necessarily invite them to my house, so I don't want to invite them to my house, so I would be nice to kind of get a neutral place I can kind of invite friends around, spark up a joint, drink a drink, and kind of hang out and do a podcast. So if you want to support me and with that vision, then click my Patreon link, which is going to be in the description of the show notes as well. If you're listening on audio, watching on the video, you can find that below. Click on the description to find all my Patreon links there. Support me, support this dream, support the dream, man. Also, I'll be DJing this Friday actually, back at Tap East in Stratford, Westfield. So if you are around after work, want to have a little bit of a dance, come down. I'll be playing there from about 7 to 11 or 7 to 12. That should be a good occasion. I've got some new tracks I want to debut, some new angles I want to go at. So holler at the boy for that. And watch out for the mix series. It's going to come out hopefully by the end later on this week. I'll have like a little radio show. I'll pop on Mixcloud. And Mixcloud, again, you can find the show notes, but it's on mixcloud.com/DJ Agostinho, all one word. Mixcloud.com/DJ Agostinho. As always, this podcast is brought to you by Audible. To claim one free book credit as well as a 30-day free trial, visit my link, the show notes, audible.com/Aggie, audible.com/Aggie to get an audiobook, one free audiobook, 30-day free trial. You cancel it anytime. You don't have to pay any money. But if you want to get started on the whole book reading thing, then check out Audible. So it's been the Agostinho Zinga Show, episode number 105. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'll see you guys again next week. Take care. Peace.